And that because you have people saying, Jonathan was white, and it at least appears that all of his assailants were black. And around that one tweet going absolutely viral for saying over the weekend, you didn't hear anything about this story because it doesn't fit the narrative. Right? In that account, now they're suggesting either media bias or that race was a factor. Well, obviously that conversation and debate has continued online. Yesterday, you had Johansson telling reporters,
you have to follow the evidence. And the only thing I'll say to that is there is no evidence at this time that this is a hate crime. And one thing I can assure you is if this was a hate crime, there would be someone getting arrested for charges related to it being hate crime. Right now, I have no evidence at all that this is a hate crime.
Also, with this situation, I think it's important to highlight the sheer fear that this whole situation has caused for the community. With now many calling into question other fights at the high school where this has happened. One junior, they're also telling a local reporter,
it could happen to anybody. It could happen for me just because I have a natural mean face. It could happen to me just from looking at somebody the wrong way.
But ultimately, that is where we are with this infuriating and heartbreaking story right now. And while we wait to see how this plays out, I got to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here and why? And then the legal tug of war over this baby girl, Indy Gregory, has finally come to an end. And if you don't know Indy, she was born in February to a family in England, but her parents never actually took her home because she suffered from a rare and incurable condition that was diagnosed in June as mitochondrial disease. And her specific mutation causing respiratory insufficiency, abnormalities in the brain, developmental arrest, and eventually premature death. And then to make matters worse, the family said Indy's condition worsened after she caught an infection at the hospital in August, with her having to go on a ventilator on 8 occasions and undergoing cardiac arrest 3 times, according to court records. So by September, Indy's doctors put her on full life support, but they also petitioned the High Court in London to let them take her off of it, arguing that any medical interventions would only put this poor girl through more pain and that it was in her best interest to stop treating her. But you also had Indy's parents wanting to keep her alive as long as possible, with her father, Dean Gregory, saying, on her good days, she is babbling, making noises, moving all her limbs. She can definitely experience happiness. She cries like a normal baby. We know she is disabled, but you don't just let disabled people die. We just want to give her a chance. But a judge actually sided with the hospital in October, saying, in short, the significant pain experienced by this lovely little girl is not justified when set against an incurable set of conditions, a very short lifespan, no prospect of recovery, and, at best, minimal engagement with the world around her. And so then the parents, backed by a Christian legal group, took their case to the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the European Court of Human Rights, all with no success. But then a pediatric hospital in the Vatican offered to treat Indy with funding from the Italian government. And experts there saying that alternative treatments would, quote, more likely than not enable Indy to survive without artificial ventilation. So you had Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni championing the parents' case, and Indy was actually given Italian citizenship. But then a UK judge refused to transfer the girl to the Vatican again, saying that it is not in her best interest and ordered her life support to be removed immediately. And this week, Indy was transported to a hospice where she took her last breaths in her mother's arms. And so while Indy's life has been cut short, the conversation around it, of course, has continued. And so with that, the question I leave you with now are, what are your thoughts? What do you think is more important here, parental autonomy or professional medical opinion? And while every kind of medical situation is not going to be a one-to-one to this, I'd say give me your thoughts on this one specifically and go from there. And then in internet drama and business news, let's talk about this Pokimane controversy, which is a massive online creator. And just this week, she launched a snack company called Mina Snacks. And with that writing, I could never find the perfect healthy snack that tasted good. So I made one for us. The Midnight Mini Cookies are made with real non-GMO ingredients and added vitamin D. And she made these with a co-founder named Darcy, who has 20 years of experience in the food industry, with a pack of 4 bags of the Midnight Mini Cookies costing $28. And while some are very excited about the venture, others are calling it a scam, with people accusing Pokimane and her team of not actually creating or making these cookies like they said, but throwing a new brand on an already existing product. And that in part because you had Twitter users noting that a company called Creation Foods has a product called Midnight Mini Cookies by Totsi, with those at least at one point being sold at Costco. And while information about those cookies isn't available on their website, that Twitter user did some digging to find the nutrition information and ingredients to compare them to Pokimane's brand. And they said they discovered that in addition to these snacks bearing the same name, they also had the same amount of calories, carbs, fat, and protein, and the same number of cookies per serving size. And that person writing, this would mean that Mina Snacks is possibly a cash grab attempt where all they needed to do was establish the company and branding. No work into the cookies themselves was put into it, and the claim of creating the cookie is allegedly a lie. You also had others claiming that on top of all that, this is just rebranded with an inflated price. And so with all this, you had some pissed off, sounding off on it, others defending Pokimane, or people saying there's nothing nefarious about all this, it's just how a lot of products work. Though also very notably, you had a spokesperson for Pokimane snack brand denying that this is some sort of copy and paste situation in a statement at Exerto, saying our product formulation is unique to Mina and exclusive to us. And adding, we can confirm the Midnight Mini cookies were in development for 2 years. This process included many rounds of testing and ingredient changes. And in fact, the situation got so big, Pokimane herself addressed it this morning. And they're noting that the same manufacturer was used between those two cookies, but it's not quite the same situation everyone has assumed here. Saying that the current batch of Mina cookies was made 3 weeks ago with its own formula, and adding, the cookies they are being compared to were also made by our manufacturer, Creation Foods. The compared cookies had one test batch sold before they were retired. Months later, we partnered with Creation Foods and fell in love with the flavor profile of the Midnight cookie. And adding, we then decided to work together to refine and improve the formula. While the ingredients list may look similar, they are entirely different in terms of ingredient quality, quantity, ratios, sourcing, the size, texture of the cookie, and of course the added vitamin D. And saying refining formulas is a very common practice in the food industry, and around 70 to 80% of the foods you see in grocery stores are white label. And then regarding the price, she said, hey, it's not cheap to make a healthy gluten-free snack with added vitamins, and this is not some cash grab. Noting there that she rarely does sponsorships and hasn't even sold merch in a while. Right, so if she wanted fast cash, this would be actually a really weird way to do it. But with that said, it's going to be interesting to see how people respond to this. Personally, based off of everything I have seen, I believe her here. But that said, the reality of the situation and the public perception of it, or how people act, that those don't always add up. Or you're put in this position where you're having to explain behind the scenes business practices to a general public that might not be that well versed in it. But also that said, the marketing monkey part of my brain wonders if this supposed controversy actually benefits her or it hurts her. Because for her, probably for better and worse, now more people know about this brand because of this controversy. But, time will tell. That's the story. Some of my personal opinion on it, and whether you agree or you disagree with me, I love to hear from you. And then, we all have that person in our life who is impossible to shop for. But thanks to today's sponsor, Boxu, they've made the impossible possible. Because Boxu is a premium Japanese snack box working with family businesses all over Japan to deliver a new theme of authentic treats each month. This makes a great gift idea because it is more than a gift. It's unique and more of an experience. I recently gifted a box to my dad because he loves snacking, and I don't think he's had that kind of snacking experience before. And he received the first Boxu box, which is Seasons of Japan, and like I thought, he loved it. He also, I will say, took it pretty seriously. Like, he read through the booklet that comes in each box to learn about more of the snacks and the culture of Japan. And while he did enjoy everything, the Yokohama butter cookie was his latest obsession. I think that, along with the organic Genmaicha tea, it was cool seeing him enjoy this and actually getting like a thank you, like, for trying something new. Though I will also say I'm personally obsessed with the white strawberries. Right? They're chocolate infused strawberries that work any time of day, or at least that's what I tell myself. Oh my God, I'm just gonna keep it in my mouth and let my tongue have some fun.
What did he say?
I know James is gonna be like, pause. But main thing, if you want to give the gift of authentic Japanese snacks and support the channel, just click the link in the description and use my code DeFranco to get $15 off your first Boxu order. And then, so one way to characterize this story is that right-wing YouTubers led an inflatable unicorn to bludgeon an old man for the content. Or I guess the other way to put it is that the man who attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband finally took the stand in his trial to explain why he did what he did. Or so you probably remember that 43-year-old David DePatt broke into the Pelosi home late last year looking for Nancy and then assaulted Paul Pelosi with a hammer. With Paul, who's at the ripe old age of 83, spending 6 days in the hospital for a fractured skull and injuries to his arm and hand. And so DePatt was charged with attempted kidnapping of a federal official and assault upon an immediate family member of the official on account of her job duties. And because the charges involve assault on a federal official, prosecutors have to prove that his actions were motivated by Nancy's elected position, which really shouldn't be too hard since he admitted to police that he went there to interrogate her about Russiagate and expose the supposed political corruption in Congress. But then you have DePapp's defense arguing, hey, he wasn't motivated by Nancy's political office, but rather his belief in right-wing conspiracy theories. And yesterday, DePapp took to the stand to explain how his life's trajectory put him inside the Pelosi household, with him claiming that he used to have left-wing political beliefs before a transformation that started when he was living in a garage without a toilet or shower playing video games for hours at a time. And according to him, he fell down the rabbit hole of Gamergate, an anti-feminist trend that became huge in the gaming world and the broader internet starting in 2014, with him saying that he listened to right-wing podcasters naming James Lindsay, watched political YouTube videos that radicalized him, and in court, he appeared to sob as he described how the mainstream media lied about Trump and said he believed that 9/11 was an inside job. So he said he developed a list of targets led by a university professor that he believed was, quote, trying to turn our schools into pedophile molestation factories. And those names including Gavin Newsom, Tom Hanks, Adam Schiff, Mike Pence, Bernie Sanders, George Soros, and former Attorney General Bill Barr. And his account is that he formulated a grand plan that involved luring them to the Pelosi home. And then, after he got his targets to admit to corruption, he would ask the president to pardon everyone he considered a criminal, explaining while crying, it's just easier giving them a pardon so we can move forward as a country. But also other testimony suggests that his plans were more violent than that, with him saying that he planned to wear an inflatable unicorn costume and upload his interrogation of Nancy online, and adding that if she lied, quote, I was going to break her kneecaps. When asked why he struck Paul after the police arrived, he said, quote, I reacted because my plan was basically ruined. He was never my target, and I'm sorry that he got hurt. So whether any of that is actually sincere or he's just repeating what his lawyers told him, I'll leave that to you. But ultimately, that is where we are with this situation, where I'll just remind you that half the country and online still joke about this situation. And many of those who do still characterize it in ways that have been debunked, saying there was a gay lovers tussle that got exposed and everyone freaked out, instead of the genuinely insane and dangerous situation that it was. And then the focus on Israel's war in Gaza continues to centralize around the regions, hospitals, and Al-Shifa Hospital in particular, as IDF troops close in on the site. Or when we talked about this 2 days ago, there were widespread reports that fighting was happening all around the hospital and that power had been lost, with the latter just making a ton of medical emergencies at the hospital even worse. But for Israel, Shifa was a major point of contention, as they have long accused Hamas of using it, or at least bunkers underneath the hospital, as a base of operations and described it as the, quote, beating